Okay, good morning, everybody, and welcome to the Maryland Apex Accelerator webinar. Hope you're all doing well. Glad you could join us. I'm your host, Yasmin Razak, and I am the Marketing and Training Coordinator here. And today's webinar topic is proposal writing, excuse me, proposal writing level 2. And it is led by Akiesha Foster, who is the founder of KeyToLife Professional Services, LLC. We'll get started very shortly, and there will be opportunities for you to ask Akiesha your questions by typing them in the chat box on your screen, and we will pause for Q&A throughout the next 2 hours. As always, we will have a 5-minute break at the top of the hour. This is being recorded and will be on our YouTube channel, and a copy of the slides will be sent to you after the presentation. For those of you who are not familiar with the Maryland Apex Accelerator, it's our mission to help Maryland businesses compete in federal, state, and local government procurement. Our services are no cost to you. So if you would like to receive some advice and mentorship, please complete our application form on our website, marylandapex.org. Okay, well, that's enough for me. Good morning, Akiesha. You can take it from here.
Yasmin, good morning, everyone, and welcome to part 2 of the series of proposal writing level 2. And in proposal level 1, before I get started with that, thank you everyone for attending. And this training and its accompanying notes are designed to give startups and new small businesses a solid foundation for doing business with the government. So this whole entire series that we've put together is all to educate small businesses, new startups, and new small businesses who can't afford. Right now, their capital is very restricted. So that's why this is mainly for our small businesses who are new to government contracting, giving you the foundation, the fundamentals. Okay, so your instructor, that's me. 22 years in government sector. I'm a GovCon coach for RSM Federal and also a proposal consultant for Jade Solutions. And so I'm a former contracting officer, contracting specialist, and a former Apex Accelerator counselor. So I kind of understand what you're going through. And once upon a time, I was a client. So I can tell you from every aspect of dealing with the government that I understand some of the challenges that you're facing, and that's why we put together this challenge, this structured way of you understanding. And so we've created and you can also connect with me on LinkedIn, and I have a YouTube channel where because these are the deep dive sessions that we're presenting to you, I break them down in 15 to 20 to 30-minute sessions for each topic. So, say you still had some questions, you can't get in with your counselor, we've provided this supplement for you so that way you can still continue to educate and train your team. So that's what that is for. So please check out those resources, leave your feedback, leave your comments, because we implement that in this training. That's how this training morphed from last year. We took all of the questions that the attendees had, we took all the information, and we put it together in the training. And that's and it just keeps getting better. Okay, so now let's get to the quick poll. All right, so how many attended the Introduction to Proposal Writing Level 1 training? Just a quick poll. And then, if you attended the training, what aspects of the proposal writing did you find the most challenging? Well, I did. I apologize, team. I did not put the question in there for the proposal level 1 because I missed it. But just if you attended the proposal level 1, then this is the second part of it. And what we did was we established the foundations in that. So that's why I'm going to go over exactly what we went in that training for you after we finish the poll. Okay, so most of you said understanding RFP requirements and compliance. That is where you're having a hard time. And it's noted because each state, each agency, um, they do it totally different. So sometimes that is the challenge. It's not on you. It's because of the differences between each agency. So sometimes it can be confusing. All right. Most of you, structuring and organizing the proposal is 67% of you. And I understand because there's no playbook. All right. Because each agency is doing it different. And then developing compelling executive summary. Um, a lot of you are struggling with that part too, and crafting detailed technical approach. And sometimes they just call it they'll say your technical approach, but then it could be called just how you plan on providing that service. Because I'm always trying to make sure I'm explaining to you in a way that you understand in everyday language and not so much as the jargon. And that's why we put together the slides the way we did from the previous training. And then the pricing strategy and cost, that's going to be in your cost proposal development training. And that's coming up in October. And you'll see that at the end of the slide because I've made sure I put it in the slides. And then the past performance documentation. And all of these things I answered in these slides because this is what we learned from our last training session. These were some of the challenges that they're faced with. So I incorporated in the training. Well, we incorporated in the training. Okay. So before today's training goal, I want you to understand the structure of a solicitation document. Okay. Use the tools like the compliance matrix and the proposal checklist, which I've included in this training. And then what you're going to do is use this to build a repeatable system for winning proposals. You win one, you're going to win two and three and four, but you have to start practicing now. And that's why we put this training together. Okay. Now, what I need for you to do today is stay engaged. All right. Ask the questions in the chat because when y'all, even if we don't get to it, right, I take those questions and that's how I was able to come up with these revisions and updates to the training. Okay. And I added a lot of good content in here this time because the last time we did the training, that was the first time that I had led that training and you all loved it. And so my goal is for you to continue to add this to your business and your continuous learning. Okay. Make sure you take in the notes, right? So when you see a slide, document which slide the notes is. So when you get these slides, you could put your notes on the slides, as you print it out as a notes. So that way you put all your notes under each slide and you're building your library for training, your training library. That way I forgot what she said about this. Then you go back to your notes on that slide. So you have your handwritten notes. And then when you get in that counseling session, you're ready. All right. Now, think about your own business. Every example we go through, ask yourself, how does this apply to me? Because that's what I ask. Every book I read, every training I go, every person, even in my personal life, I'm trying to figure out how does this apply to me? What can I learn from this? And then what should I be working on next? You're always thinking about the next step. And then take action this week. Implement the training immediately so you don't lose what you've learned. I'm telling you, because day one, you start forgetting stuff. Day two, day three, day four, you didn't basically didn't forgot because there's so much going on. All right, so take action and then stick with the series. Each session is designed to help you go from beginner to a confident contractor if you want to be a prime contractor or a subcontractor. That is the goal of this training. Okay. And then I want to give you a brief recap of the level one, the proposal writing level one training foundations. Okay. So the proposal, because I did incorporate that slide in here as I continue to keep doing this training, I know I should have incorporated a training slide that lets you know what we discussed, the prerequisite in the previous training. So, what that training entailed was equip new small business with the foundational tools to confidently approach their first government proposal. Now, if this is not your first, it's okay. You might learn something, you might not. But I'm telling you, you can use this training for your team, for everyone. And that way, that saves you time showing them, okay, this is what you're supposed to do while you're building your business. Then you have this training resource to train your team or your virtual assistant, whoever. All right, the key takeaways. We talked about what a proposal is, the types of solicitations. Then we walked through the proposal life cycle from market research all the way to the award. Then we talked about the essentials for the proposal folder structure. And in my example, I use Google Drive because I'm starting where most people are with a Gmail account and a Google Drive. And the other stuff will come. That's going to come as you continue to build those line items, continue to get that capital, all that working capital in. Then you can put a line item in there for if you want to use Microsoft or any other platform out there, but start where you are. Okay. Then we talked about the kickoff meeting and the importance of backwards planning. Okay. And inserting that on your calendar. Then we talked about the writing assignments. Okay. And then the critical structures sections. We gotta know what's in the instructions, the evaluation criteria, and the requirements. All right. So what I did was we selected the State Department so you can see how solicitations vary from agency to agency. Last year we did a federal requirement. I can't remember exactly who we did, but this year we're doing the State Department. And then the last thing we talked about is prepare for your counseling session. We said we were going to pick one active opportunity, set up the drive folder in your workspace, and then update the key proposal dates to your calendar. And that was in the backward planning. All right. And then schedule your session with your counselor. And if you didn't have a counselor, then you were going to apply for a counselor. So if you missed it, remember we keep all of the full level one replay available on YouTube. So please be sure to watch it because there's a lot of value in there for you. Okay, now let's move on. Okay, so today's agenda for proposal writing level 2. Okay. What we're going to talk about today is the APMP best practices. Everything I do is APMP. That's where I'm a member of. That's where I've been taught. That's where I'm getting all my certifications from is APMP best practices. Okay. And then we're going to talk about the proposal tools like the checklist and the all the checklists and the matrix. All right. And then we're going to talk about mirroring the table of contents. That's one of the problems that I've seen is we're having trouble on figuring out the table of contents because we're not mirroring the table of contents. Then I'm going to walk through a real solicitation, the one we used in proposal level 1. That's why I really wanted everyone to attend the proposal, but we know you can't always attend all of the sessions because you're building your business, you have appointments, life happens. So that's why it is important that you go back and rewatch that video. All right. Because it's the deep dive. And then we're going to go section by section of the breakdown. And then the counseling prep and submission tips. And then more training to help you grow, Q&A, and additional resources. That's our agenda for today. And I just thank you all for being here. Okay. Next. Now, APMP. Like I said, I'm always talking about the best practices. Okay. Follow exact bid request instructions for the proposal headings, including the heading content, the numbering scheme, the heading levels. The bid instructions don't specify a heading format. Use the exact main headings and subheadings used in the bid request. Mimicking evaluators' topics and sequencing makes it easy for the evaluators to find the responses to evaluate the questions. So I put the resources on here for you because this is where I get all my training, all I get where I have learned to do proposal writing. And this is where I'm telling you because that way you know exactly how it's supposed to be done because there's a lot of information out there. There's a lot of information out there. What I'm trying to get you is point you to one path. There's the Shipleys, there's so many others, but just focus on one right now as you grow your business. So you're not, because they all do it different. And just like all agencies do things different, you want to establish a way that you can be rooted and build a foundation in. And then as you get big, as you grow and mature the company, then you can change. Then you can, because then you can actually put people in places. Okay, hey, I want a ship lease person in here, or I want whoever up in here, and then they can do that work and you can focus on being the CEO on all the duties that you already have, wearing multiple hats. Okay, now why use a proposal checklist? Okay, it keeps your team organized and on schedule. Okay, too many times we're missing deadlines. We don't know what's due. We don't know how many proposals we have. We're trying to do two, three to four, and you're a one-man team, or you're a two-man team, or you're just a small team and you have not organized yourself. It helps divide the responsibilities clearly. Clearly, okay, Akiesha has the executive summary, or such and such has whatever. You see what I'm saying? It identifies who has what. Then it reduces the risk of missing critical documents or steps. Too many times I've seen we miss something, and now all that work you've put into that document is no longer good because they're gonna say it's non-compliant, and then you don't, and then they're not going to even evaluate all that hard work you have put into that opportunity. It makes it easier for onboarding new team members. Now, say you have a consultant coming on, they're going to want to know. If you want your counselor reviewing your documents, they're going to want to know, okay, what have you done, what have, who's assigned what, and where's all this stuff. And then establish a repeatable teachable process. Many of us, we know how to do it, but we do not know how to teach it, and that's the problem. Okay, next we're going to talk about the why use a compliance matrix, and then I'm going to pause, then we're going to go over the examples that I have, because what I've learned in here in the training sessions, it is better when I go over just a little bit at a time. We talk about it, then I give you an example so you can implement quickly. Okay, now, why use a compliance matrix? It ensures every requirement from the solicitation is addressed. You think, oh, I thought I did the SF 1449, and then when you send it in, it's not done. You understand what I'm saying? Trust. I mean, you have to validate. If you're not validating and making sure that everything is done, as the person who's going to sign off on this document and submit it to the government agency, saying that yes, I've reviewed this solicitation and this is what we're going to do. Okay. It helps you track what's completed, pending, or missing. It makes your response easy to cross reference for evaluators. And then it supports the proposal rules for reviews for pink team, red team, gold team, black team. That is for medium to large business and even small established businesses. But when you're first getting started, all I want to see is proposal reviews. You don't have to worry about pink, red, because the proposal is not as complex in the beginning because you're going after simplified acquisition. Most of the things, it was 250,000, and I believe, if I'm not mistaken, it went up to 350,000. But that's why I always tell you, you have to keep the ear to the ground and always updates on all the updates, the simplified acquisition threshold when it goes up. So that's why it's important that we continue to keep up with those things. All right, now, and make sure you create a repeatable framework for future opportunities. So now I'm going to go to the uh, template that I created for you. So now we created, this is the demo drive that we have been using to create all the different series in this in our training. And so what I did was start putting it together because we are visual people. We want to see what right looks like, or a way looks like. I won't say right because there's so many ways to do it. And the way I do it is easy for small business to emulate. I'm not going to try to set up a structure that is so complicated that the small business won't use any of those folders anyway, because they're still at the building phase. And then as you grow, then you will morph and then grow, scale, change your folder structure, all that. But start where you are. Okay. So in that proposal level one, we talked about the proposal kickoff folder, the solicitations, the writing assignments, reviews, and the final solicitation submission. Okay. And in each folder, we're going to talk about something. But for this one, we want to talk about the reviews. I put the reviews in this folder because what you're doing is creating the reviews go in the reviews folder because this is your reviews. And so that document looks like this. You will get the handouts. So please note that you will get the handouts about, you will get everything that you're seeing today. Okay. All right. So is the proposal checklist. What you're going to do is make a copy every time. And I consolidate it so you don't have so many sheets. When the company becomes large, of course, you're going to have separate sheets for certain things. But right now, keep it simple. Keep it very simple. Kids, keep it simple. Okay. So, what you're going to do is let me make sure you can see it. I'm gonna blow it up. Let me see. Yeah, it's already at 150. All right, so you're gonna download the full solicitation. See, you're walking yourself, and who's assigned that? So then you're gonna put, okay, I have my VA going in, or my BD lead, or whoever, and then what the due date is. That's how you do that. So then we're gonna just say we're gonna put a VA in there, okay, and then you're gonna give her the due date. Now, because you went in there and had conducted the backwards planning, you know when the due date is. So then you can go in there and assign everyone's their due date, assign to who and what. So maybe you have your VA creating your Google Drive folder as well. Then you're going to put that in there. But notice this, remember in proposal level one, we talked about this. If you're using a My Drive, the ownership is on whoever creates the drive. I mean, those documents in that drive. So if you do have that via, it is your responsibility for you to have them transfer ownership to you soon as they create it, transfer ownership, and then you need to validate and check it that they have act transfer ownership, and you have to have a Gmail account to do it. If you do not have a Gmail account, it won't let you use your domain on your Google Workspace. You have to have a Gmail account to do that. So then I always tell them when you first have a generic email that you've created in Google Drive. So, like if it's your support team, admin, Google Drive folder, Drive, that email, everything could be the collaboration. So that way you don't mix any personal in that folder. Everything has to be set up in that folder. So you can, and then, like I said, we'll talk about that in our proposal one. I don't want to get all back into it because we have a lot to cover. So I need to keep going. All right, then you're going to draft your finalized transmittal letter. You completed the executive summary. The technical capabilities section. Who's doing the management plan? If there is a management plan, add the past performance references, completing pricing, which we will discuss in depth on the cost development training, and then who completed the person who has the signature authority to sign needs to be right here, and then when you submit it, and then what I always tell you do is create drop downs, change it, put your data validation. So you doing your data, you going in there and you putting valid dates. You have to add those different rules, your drop downs, all of that. Learn how to use these things, set the processes in place and repeat them. That is how you scale. That is how you grow. Okay, I don't want to move on that anymore because we got a lot to cover. So now let's talk about the compliance matrix. All right, you're going to put the RFP requirement. Okay, you're going to list them all right here. So we already know it was section 1, 2, 3, and 4, and 5. Now, this is not the typical RFP. All right, this is not, because this is the State Department, and I wanted you to see the varying of the requirements. It don't have the section L, the section M, and it's called something different. It's called the section L would normally be the instructions. The section M will normally be evaluation criteria. Well, in this one, they just called it section 1, 2. The references section. It didn't call it those names that we're normally used to seeing. So you're going to have to learn how to translate each requirement. You're going to have to, okay, so what are they saying section L is? The instructions. Okay, they saying that's in section 3 or whatever. And then if you want, you could put it in parentheses, each section, so you can tie it together, because that's where you're struggling. You don't know how to tie it together because the federal requirement says we're going to do a section A, B, C, D, E, F, G, but yet this requirement is only saying sections 1, 2 through 5. So that is how you start putting the pieces together. Okay, how would this, and then that's how you get your thinking. Okay. Now, the location. When I say location of the RFP document, that is the solicitation document. That is this. All right. This is the solicitation document. That is what I mean when I say the solicitation document. It goes right here. This is where you find all that information. Now, our response is what you're going to put right here. What we said. So for the proposal said, we're going to put, yes, we submitted it, blah, 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 blah. Okay, boom. And then the location in the RFP response. So that's when we're going to get right here, when we're going to discuss right here. This is the proposal response that we created for you, so you can have a tangible thing that you didn't see from the beginning when we identified it on sam.gov. So we identified this opportunity on sam.gov through our evaluation criteria. Oh, it was a good fit for our organization. We are a advertising agency, and then boom, 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 boom. So this is okay. So we did all this, we reviewed it, boom. It came back as a fit. So these are the phases and steps to get to there. Okay, so now we've identified this messaging campaign development. All right, we put the solicitation. Now we seen, oh, they had an amendment. So this is how it all comes together. And that's why I have to walk you. This is just a draft outline, me showing you how to put the draft outline. And we're going to go through all this. It's just, this is like the trailer. It's me showing you how we're going through everything. It's the preview, all right, of how you put it all together. So let me go back to the proposal. And that's why I was telling, and you see how you start putting it all in here. The transmittal letter, you start putting everything in here, your table of contents, and then you want to be able to update the table of contents. That's when you're going to insert the table of contents. Where is it? It's under, let me make sure I'm going to tell you right. I think it's under format, headings, tools. Oh, they moved it in Google Docs. Well, in Word, it says insert table of contents. And I don't want to spend a lot of time on. So when you go back and watch the video, make sure everything is set up, because you want to be able to update your table of contents just like that. All right. And it's under one of the tabs. I can't remember because I use both of them all the time and I don't want to spend a lot of time. Oh, I know why. This is not saved as a Google Doc. It's saved as a Microsoft Word. So because I had built it in Word and then I uploaded in here because I wanted you all to have a example of what it all looks like and how to bring it all together. And that's how you build a table of contents. And we're going to continue to go through the slides and you'll see that. So you'll put your response right here and then the location, because you're verifying that you put both in the locations. And then is it compliant? Did I, yes, no, partially. So that way you, and then color coded, so forth, and then make your comments. Due date found on the SF 1449 Block 8. And then it was assigned to CEO. That's the person who got the signing rights. Okay, not started yet. And then done. I put little stuff in here. Review section 2 for clause, read and understand. I understood everything was saying. Confirm compliance, solicitation provisions, and then so forth. So you're going to start learning how to do all that, but you just needed to know how. All right. All right. And there we go. So before I move to the next section, is there any questions, Jasmine?
Hi, thanks, Akiesha. Okay, so let's have a look and see. There are some questions popping up, and some of them I posted the link to the APMP document you mentioned earlier on. So the PDF link is that. Somebody had asked if you're going to share any of these documents with the audience, yes, we will be doing that after the webinar, and it is being recorded, so you can watch it back as well on there. So yeah, that's pretty much it so far.
Yeah, so let's keep moving. So that means to me that either I'm doing an okay job or I'm doing what I'm supposed to do, incorporating the questions that I received from the last session. So there is not so much questions, but now we're able to just work on the content and work on developing. All right. So now, why mirror the table of contents? Remember, it ensures compliance with the solicitation structure. It helps evaluators quickly locate the required sections. It improves the readability and the scoring because you scoring yourself, but they also scoring you too. Because I score myself on everything because I want to make sure that I have put in there what they've asked for. All right. And then I'm also looking to see, okay, did I meet the standard or did I exceed the standard? Because they're going to look for you to exceed. So say they might tell you, all right, have you delivered 10 um, laptops before? Yes, I've delivered 100 laptops. I've exceeded that standard. I've been in business for 10 years. I've worked with DOD, defense agents. That's how you determine how you exceeded a standard. Is did I just meet it? Or have I went above and beyond and I've done this several times over? If you can articulate that, you are already on the road to so much more. All right. So now it helps the evaluator. Okay. And improves the readability. It's just like creating when we was writing our college papers or high school papers and then they told us we had to do a research paper. Well, the first thing we had to do is go get all the resources, gather all the information, and now we have to put it in a way that we can understand, create that outline and then start writing the content. It's the same principle, okay? Same principle. We're trying to put everything in order and then flow according to the solicitation, and then it builds credibility and professionalism. Okay. Now, how I did this opportunity because this is a state department. All right. They only had sections 1 through 5. So I had to figure out how did they do that? All right. How did they mirror? Because it's not the typical way that the federal agency does. And this was in sam.gov. Oh, by the way, it wasn't in state of Maryland or anything like this. It was the sam.gov. And so what I did was I gave you a basic structure of how you figure this out. All right. So you first go find out all the sections. All right. In the normal federal solicitation, it'd be A, B, C, D, E, F, but this is a State Department and they chose to use 1 through 5. So then I went in there and found out all the required documents, the pricing section, the technical proposal section, the active SAM's registration, and then the certs. So I know it's 5 sections in this thing. So that's how I start building my table of contents, right? Then the description. I did a standard form. You just start looking at the description of each. Okay, it's the standard form that need to be completed and signed with the quote. Okay, this is the breakdown of the costs. And then what does the technical proposal include? Does it include a executive summary, technical capability, and a management plan? That's when I went in there and looked for those things. If I didn't see it, then you take it out. Then your active SAM's registration. All you gotta do is log into your SAM account and download your SAM registration proof. That's it. And then PDF, make sure it's a PDF. Well, it is going to download as a PDF. And then the section 5, the portions of it that you must fill out on the reps and certs because it may not be in your SAM registration, depending on if they updated something, added a new clause, or so forth and so on. Now, in action, how that looks. Let's go back to the proposal. So, what I did was when I was filling out this information, I had to go in the instructions section. You cannot do the table of contents unless you've read the instructions. So you will go to the solicitation. You'll start reading the solicitations, right? So we've already, all this other stuff we did in proposal level 1, we got all dates, the backwards planning, all of that came about from proposal level 1. Okay, so we're not going to focus on that this time. Now, in order for a quotation to be considered, you must also complete and submit the following. So that's another way I put that on a Word document so I don't miss. Now you see this is an error. So you see, what we're learning is you got to read this stuff carefully because sometimes stuff is left in there from a old solicitation. They probably was using a template and just did not replace the SF-18 to show it's a SF-1449. And that's the time you would bring that up in the Q&A, the questions and answer. That's why they always want you to come to the question and answers because you caught something. Because I've been busy or moving fast and then forgot to put something in a document, and then when I reviewed it with someone else, they was like, "Hey, did you notice that you didn't put this in there?" I said, "Oh, thank you for catching that." Because when you look at the document over and over and over again, you start glazing on it. You start like, "Oh my goodness, I done looked at it so many times. I don't know what I'm looking at no more." It starts coming together. So that's one of the hard parts of when you're doing this over, and that's why they always tell you put pens down. That's what we say in proposal land because you have to reset, if you will. Stop looking at the document so you can see the errors and stuff like that. All right, so then they talked about they want to see sections one, pricing. Sections three, they just didn't put the rest of it down there, but you know what sections three is when you look at the table of contents. Then the proof of an active. So this is how I was able to build my table of contents. Now, those are the sections they're telling me they want me to talk about. Now, what goes under each section is something different. So when you looking, so now we know all of our sections. Now they already told us about the officer shall be registered in SAM, but that's an active registration. They already told you prior to submittal of their offer and quotations. Okay, if you submit it, it's going to be non-responsible and you don't have an active. Because I've seen people with inactive SAM registrations go after an opportunity and they were non-compliant. Period. They're not, because that is your job as a small business owner to verify and validate that you have an active sale because you have to do it every year. We have to register every year and we have to keep everything active. Okay. Now, for the okay, so now this is you see how their table of contents basically I mirrored their table of contents. The section one, the schedule. All right, SF4, the cover sheet. That is your cover sheet. All right. Section two, the contract clauses. Section three, like I said, this is not the normal. This is for State Department. This is how they do it in this office, in this agency. Now another agency in the state office may do it a totally different way. So that's why when we're telling you to target these agencies, it's important to you have done your research and your homework to see how they work with their small business, how they post their solicitations, their sources sought, their market research, everything. Because you'll see, and that's why we always encourage you to create different folders, different everything, because you want, so say if another state department with this office comes out, you would hope they're going to use the same um, way they did previously. That's not always the case because they might have a new contracting officer or procurement specialist or anyone come on and they may change the way they do business. So that's why you see things changing so much because there's different people, um, because there's turnover, and so when the new person comes in, they might change the way the solicitations are posted. So that's why I always tell you, you have to be flexible. You have to learn how to read these requirements and kind of stick with the same agencies after you've done your targeting. You know that this is an agency that buys what you sell. You've done your targeting, you know it, you've built relationships with this agency and so forth and so on. So that is all part of it. It all ties together. And then this is where I got the evaluation factors. Now, in a more complex I chose a more simple, not so complex, if you will, a simplified acquisition, because I wanted you to see what that looks like. But then as you continue to attend all of our trainings and seminars, they'll get more complex because I needed to give you a baseline, where to start, and then we're going to continue to advance the training. But it has to stay for new startups. But as we continue to grow the program, the paid services will be for the advanced if Maryland decides to start doing that. So I do think they do have a couple of paid workshops and stuff like that, and that one will be more complex. But that's what these series are meant for, the small business new startups who are getting started, because you have to learn a foundation. And we're constantly every month getting hundreds of small businesses in who are just getting started, and this training is designed for them. And so I have to go through the basics because this is some of the things that you're having challenges with. Okay, so then once we done talked about section 4, the evaluation factors, and then section 5. Now let's dive into the document. Now, let me make sure I'm staying on track with the slides. We've mirrored the table of contents. Now let's move on. Section 1. All right, now let's talk about section 1. Okay, section 1 is, let's give the overview of the section 1. Now, this section outlines the solicitations framework, okay, period of performance, the deliverables, and the SF 1449. Okay, it includes performance work state, the scope of work, the objectives, I apologize, the deliverables, the point of contact, and the invoicing. So, so what do you review? So when you're looking at that, what you're going to review is the SF 1449 blocks. All right, you always, so now let's go to the document. What we're going to review. All right, so now we're on it. So let me, oh, it's kind of big. You might not see everything. So I'm gonna just go one step by step. All right, so you already know where the date issued because you already know the time and when it's due. But because there was an amendment, we are not going by this on block 8 because now we have the new date with this document, the amendment. All right, the amendment changes that. It changed it from, the purpose of this amendment is to extend the offer's due date from September 16th to September 19th. You'll notice there's a lot of errors, a lot of different things, but that's why you have to go those, because right here it said what? The 15th. So that's why I said always attend those events so you can bring those things up. Because like I said, it could have been on used on another document and just missed accidentally. So it's not malicious, it's just accidentally, especially when you're doing 7, 8, 9, 10, dealing with your vendors, dealing with the meetings, your speaking engagements, and so forth on. These things happens, okay? All right, so then what they tell you. Now we want to look at blocks. Where do we focus? Block 20, the sub schedule of services, right? Supplies and services. They're asking you to fill out this section right here. The quantity, the unit, the price, and the amount. Okay. Don't touch this one, 25 and 26. You see, it already told you for government use only. Do not use, do not touch that. All right. And then the next thing is you want to sign it, print, and date. The contracting officer fills out the rest. Okay. So that's what the SF. So when you see a SF, I want you to feel confident with that SF 1449, how to fill it out, walking you through each step so you know what. And so when I said in the slide what to extract, you're looking at the proposal due date. So let's go back to the slide. Okay, so what to extract, you're looking at the proposal due date because that's how we're going to backwards plan, right? From the proposal due date, we're backwards planning. Okay. Then required deliverables, we're looking for the required deliverables and the format and the page count. This one didn't have the page count, so you can go a little bit, but you still want to keep it concise and straight and direct to the point, but you're not locked in to 10 pages. You see what I'm saying? If you want to put 12 pages because you want to show a sample of some of your work and all that other stuff, then you have a little bit liberties. But don't make too much because if you put too much, they're not going to read it. You want them to read it. Okay. Then the point of contact, submission and payment process. Okay. Compliance elements of the SF 1449. And then the performance standards. Okay. That's your KPIs. in the civilian sector, the KPIs. Now, how it impacts your proposal. It sets the foundation of your proposal, ensure your response mirrors the structure and clearly addresses each deliverable. You'll need to fill out and sign the SF 1449 accurately. That's why we're walking through this. Okay. And that's how it impacts the proposal. Okay. So that is the SF 1449. Now we're going to go to, and that's in section. Now, this is the rest of section 1. Okay. Now, you see how brief this performance work statement is? It's very brief. It's 2 liners. Okay. That is not the norm. This is for this requirement. I'm going to let you know that now. This is only for this requirement. And other requirements you will see as you continue to go through um, is a little bit different. Now, this one is just telling you the requirement is messaging campaign development, and then the period of performance is 12 months. That's all they're telling you. But they're going to go a little deeper in the scope of work. So this is how, so when you see this, section 1, when you go to the draft, you see how I built section 1. So let's go to section 1. They didn't say I couldn't be put no executive summary in there. So I want them to know that I understand their business. So let me make it bigger so you can see it. All right, so the executive summary. All right, so understanding the mission, because whatever they start with, that's what you start with. Okay. If they start with understanding them, I'm going to start with, because you're mirroring everything and you're explaining to them, my company is honored to submit this proposal to support the U.S. Department of State in executing this, the campaign and all that. All right. Then, where I get this information from, and you see I put an A2, is because as I was going through the document, I looked at the instructions and it said that business establishment, they want to know the business establishment. All right. Because I had already drafted my little solicit. I went to the instructions, right? I went to see draft response was section A, the summary of instructions that you can include in a proposal package for. So this is how I did it. All right. So I went and I copied everything off the instructions and I pasted. And then because I'm building me a outline draft, right? And then for each one, I'm going in here, boom, boom. Okay, the pricing guys go in section 1. Okay, then section 2, it said demonstrate the ability to perform. I gotta put a POC. And all of this, let me show you where I pulled this from, because you copying and pasting so that way you don't get lost. And then you'll put this, the section A summary of instructions, on your checklist. This is how you making sure you didn't miss anything. So I will add that in here because I need you to see how I do it. And that way you know how to do it. So then what you do, you hit insert above, and then you put for section 1, and then you put that draft. Because see, I could build all of the documents before I get on here, but you don't know how to put it together. And then I just copy that, right? I just copy it, or you copy it from the document, and then you put that way you know I built this document, because you'll forget. That's why the folder. And where the location at, it's going to tell you the location of the document. So then we're going to go in the location of the document. Okay, so let's go down. So we talked about performance works. Remember, we on section 1. Okay, they talking about all this. When you see shall, all you have to do is control find and then hit shall, and you go find all these shalls, because that means you need to know about this. Or you see must, you can go in there, type all must, all that. This is how I shred a document, a solicitation document, so that way I don't miss anything. I take my time. I don't care if I have to read it 5 times, 6 times. I read it the first time just to get a clarity. I read it the second time, now I'm highlighting. I read it the third time so I can find everything. I'm telling you, I read because my goal is to win. And just like in the Olympics, I mean, they are focused, they determined, they're disciplined. And only one of them gonna get the gold medal. And only one of us is gonna win this contract award. Okay, so I am working on this like I'm trying to win a contract award. Okay, so I got to be the best. I got to articulate myself the best, and so forth and so on. Okay, so let me close that out so you know how to search. So now we're finishing it up. This is in the cost development training that's coming up in October. So you don't want to miss it because this is how I'm showing you how to put a proposal together. I'm showing you step by step, walking you through it, and I'm working it through with you. I'm building the draft, the template. All you gotta do is show up. And who's gonna give you this? All you gotta do is show up. Okay. So now this is gonna be. So don't forget now what training that is. So then the notice to proceed. You see how I'm reading and I'm looking at everything. Okay, they said after contract award and submission of acceptable insurance. Now make sure you got your insurance. All you small business out here don't have no insurance, just make sure you have the quote. So because you sometimes you don't have them finances at the beginning to get the insurance, had them quotes. So soon as they approve that, you got 10 days. 10 days to turn it on. But do not turn it on until you have the award. Okay, because you're still saving that capital. Now, if you have I forgot what the other one is, the little small business one, but that's no here nor there. I'm gonna stay focused. All right. The licenses and permits, if applicable. Okay, so make sure if applicable. But they're telling you, so you're gonna address that. All of this is addressed in your proposal. I've seen so many people miss stuff. They don't put all that. If it's in the performance work statement and in section 1, I'm addressing every little thing because they won't ever say that I was not compliant. Okay, now here's the scope of work, section B. So now you see why I put the executive summary and I understand the introduction and the background. All right, I went in here, I read it, and then I responded to it. The scope of work, I went in there, I read it, and I responded to it. The objectives, the deliverables, I responded. So now let me show you how I responded to this section. Okay, and you see the performance standards, I put it. Okay, boom. And then the peer to performance, I'm addressing the fact that I know that the peer performance is only 12 months. This is not a base and four options. This is just a base. This is one contract. The place of performance, I'm identifying that it's a virtual coordination. And then the reporting requirements, the POC. Okay. And the submission of invoice, I'm addressing. Now, boom, you see what it say? End of statement of work. That means now we're going to be moving on to section 2. So this is section 1 we're talking about. I want to make sure we understand it. So now let's pull up the proposal. So how I knew to address. So first of all, I answered everything for the proposal in section 1 first. So you'll see that was first. You like, okay, so where did this come from? This came from the instructions. You see what I'm saying? This came from the instructions because it told me where to put it. So let me highlight it for you. Okay. So this came from the instruction. If you see anything like that on there, that means it came from a section. Now, this came from the instruction. So this is how now this is our copy. Now, once we turn it in to submission, that's when you're going to clear all the other stuff out. Right now, this is us verifying and validating that we have put all the content in the correct order, answered all the questions, and because we need that. And then you color code it because in instructions we make one color, evaluation criteria we make another color, our response is in the black or red is for something like when you're the review teams, they're color coded. So that's how you know which section, who reviews what, and so forth and so on. But that will be in um, the topics by subject, that little bite size, because this is the deep dive. So we have to stay focused on the deep dive. But I wanted to sprinkle in a few of those things so you know the importance of getting all this in order and why, because this is the foundation. It leads to level 2, level 3, level 4, level 5. You understand? So that's how you knew to put this here. And the designated liaison, we're about to get to it. We're about to get to it. Okay, so now we see all that. Now we're going to skip real quick to the next section because I want you to see the instructions so that way you know, and then we're going to come back to section 2 so it all ties together. So when you go down here, okay, I believe it was on page in the clauses. It should be starting. Let me go to the next one. These are still the clauses. I forgot to bookmark it. I apologize. I was because I wanted y'all to make sure you see how everything goes because we're not on the contract clauses yet. Security requirements, you'll see the little pieces. Okay. You need to know where this information came from for the instructions. That's the contracting officers. They're telling you about the name provided. We're going to go through that. Here it is, Section 3. You see how Section 3, this is the summary instructions that I was telling you. Each proposal must consist of the following. So I copied and pasted that on this document right here. I filled in all the information and then I waited to see where does this go in this proposal draft because you don't want to confuse yourself. So you go in the order how they have it, and then you'll learn how to layer and put the pieces together. That is why it's so complex. With a lot of you were having that same problem of how to put it's just struggling to put it together because it's not intuitive. It's not just easy. You have to go, it's like a puzzle piece. I mean, you got to put this piece in this corner, put this piece over here, put that piece over there, and then hopefully it'll come together right and pull out a good picture. Okay. Okay, so let me go back to this. So this is how you know. So then you see how it said information right here. So let's go through it. So A1, that's the SF 1449 that I was telling you about, the cover page. And remember when I told you what blocks had to be filled out? Blocks 20, 23, 24, 30A, B, C, and then I believe 31 through C, that's contracting offers. So I don't know why they mixed that in there for you. That's just, they probably were saying that once it's not valid until the contracting officer signs off on that document, right? Because then you have a valid contract. That's when you can have a contract award once they signed off on it. But your blocks is right here, the 20, 23, 24, and then the 30 A, B, C. This is the contracting officer, okay? And that's the section 1. All right, now A2, this is where I got A2 from. So when you see that on the proposal, this is where I got that from. They wanted the company's name is legally established business with a permanent address and telephone number. And normally you will put in here. So if you're in the state of Maryland, you have registered with the state of Maryland. So you will put that in there. That's what goes there. I always put this is what goes in here. Your register whatever state you are with in there because they want to know that you are legally established business in the US. Okay. So that's what goes there. Now, the designated liaison and project oversight. So for me, for this, be, because I didn't attend the pre-proposal conference, that would have been ideal because then I could have asked the questions. Does the designated liaison and the project person, the project manager, can be the same person? Or does it have to be two different people? Because right now, remember, we in the building phase and we need a program manager that can be both. You know what I'm saying? Or is it two people? Because you just want to verify. But I'm assuming it's just one person. But we never know. It could be two people. But normally it's just one person because the requirement is so small. And that's how you'll know when it's complex, it'll require more. But when it's very small, it won't require as much. And you see what I said? I said to ensure seamless coordination and project execution. You always want to give them a little blurb. Don't just boom and just put the person name there. No, you're telling a story, but you gotta do it brief, concise, and straight to the point. Active words, active. Try not to use passive. Use active, active, active. Okay. And then you say the appointed person, their full name as the designated project manager and primary liaison for the contract. You're letting them know this is the person who's going to be for the contract. He, she, they bring over blank years of experience managing communications, campaigns, and federal government contracts, fluent in both English and Spanish. Because remember, the requirements for fluent in both English and Spanish. All right. He or she will serve as the central point of contact for all technical scheduling, reporting matters with the embassy team, and designated you as government personnel. Then I just gave a brief, about the company, proven experience, all this, commitment to excellence, right? And then we moved on. So all this, I'm telling you how to do this. Section 1, the schedule, insert the SF. So that's why once you finish everything, once you PDF it, then you can start inserting stuff in the correct order and where it's supposed to be. You can't do it while it's a Word document or in Google Sheet. You do it when you combine everything at the final, when you're ready to put everything together. And that's a couple of days before, that's when you start combining. All right. So we at the top of the hour. We're going to take our break because I didn't want to move into schedule 2 until we came after the break. All right, Yasmin.
Okay, thanks, Akiesha. We'll take a 5-minute break, everybody. Okay, welcome back, everybody.
Welcome back. Okay, so now let's get back to it. Okay, now let me close out schedule 1. Okay, so now schedule 1, remember, make sure the signer has authority to bind the company. All right, the signature must match the sam.gov official contact or the authorized rep. Okay, then sign in ink with with a certified digital signature if submitting electronically, because they're allowing for electronic signatures now. So then you want to make sure you're doing it that way. All right, now let's move straight up into uh section, but now you understand, you get a glimpse of um the proposal writing process, the proposal life cycle. It's massive. It's a lot of information. It's a lot of moving pieces. And it's important that we break down each section. And all you can handle is so much in 2 hours, you see? So that's why we had to break it up into series, because it's massive. And then we still didn't include everything because there's a lot going on. And each agency different, varies, all that other things. So thank you for your patience as we continue to go through this series. Okay, now section 2, contract clauses. Okay, so let's talk about what you expected for the contract clauses, the overview. Okay, so this section includes standard and agency specific. So this is State Department, right? So State Department specific clauses, contract clauses that govern how they contract with perform once awarded. So State Department, you have to know. So if it was the Department of Defense, under Department of Navy, Air Force, you name it, everybody. And then you, by the way, that's the federal acquisition regulation. But then they also have a agency specific uh, that you have to know about too as well. So with the Air Force, they have their requirements. With the Navy, they have theirs, and then plus the federal acquisition regulation. So there's a lot of different regulations you have to be aware of when you're dealing with that. And so with the Department of State acquisition regulation, that's the DOSAR. That's when you keep saying that DOSAR, that's the Department of State acquisition regulation and its clauses. So they have their own clauses, just like the Federal Acquisition Regulation have their clauses. And that is incorporated in that section when we go over it. Okay, now what to expect? The flow down clauses that may apply to subcontractors. Okay, the legal requirements you must, there's no if ands about it, must meet if awarded. And those things are insurance, liability, records and retention, and et cetera, all that. And we'll discuss most of that in probably the contract administration. And I believe that one's in November. We'll go over the training, but I want to stay focused because we're running out of time. All right, and how it impacts your proposal. All right, your pricing, the compliance plan must account for these clauses. It helps to evaluate risks before bidding, and then you may need to acknowledge receipt and agreement with these clauses in your proposal. And you've seen a little bit of that when I was scrolling through the opportunity when we were about to go over the section 2. Okay. But before we went over the section 2, I wanted to cover the section 1 of how some of section 3 went into section one because it asks for it. And then they tell you where it needs to go. So that's the reason why you've seen that. So now let's go to the proposal. All right. So we did section one, okay, and showed you how to put that in there, the introduction, the scope of work response, because this was me showing the proposal of the rest of section one. I wanted to show you the rest of it as I go into the next section. The scope of work response, and how, because I broke everything down, the three objectives, was more than three. Number three, the objectives that align with what they were saying, and then how I put the deliverable timeline and description in there. So that way they can see that I understand, I read and I understand everything. And then normally you will put a little blurb right here before you introduce this, like telling them something like that. But for the sake of time, I couldn't put all that in there. All right. And then the performance standards response, that was number five. We acknowledge and commit to meeting and exceeding the standards. And this is your measurements. This is what we're measuring ourselves by. The campaign reach, the message effectiveness, the digital engagement, and so forth. I went in there and I put everything in there because I want to know how I'm going to be graded. Okay. Oh, excuse me. And then they told you the evaluation method right here, how you be. So you have to be, oh, that's why it's important that you read the solicitation. Okay, now let's talk about section three. Oh, we're not on section three, we're on section two. Okay, so we didn't have to address section two in the proposal. All we did have to read. So let's go back to section two. Okay, so let me go back to section two. And sometimes you could just hit control find, and let's go to section two. Let's see if it will work on here. Okay, they wanted to give me a little piece of section two. They didn't want to take me to the beginning. Okay, so now I'm just going to take it back up to section two. So you can understand. No, but this they took me all the way back to section five. So let me see. Okay, section two, the contract clauses. Let's see. Okay, it's just taking its time, and I'm gonna just keep going because I don't want to prolong this. So we on section one. Okay, so we've already went over there. Section two. Let's get to section two so we can, because I really need to go over that with you so you understand. Okay, here we go. Section two, contract clauses. All right, so get used to. So what I always recommend when you first get started is printing out the contract clauses so you can become familiar with the contract clauses. Okay, so because you print them out, now you can take your time and read, or PDF just the contract clause if you're a digital person, because I like a digital copy and um copy pen because I like to write notes next to stuff. Now, if you want to write your notes and then scan it in, or you just add comments, because normally what I do too is I just go up here, find the comment, and put my notes in here. Okay. So that way I can know what I've read it, I understand it moving forward. So if I see this again and it has the same date, notice the date on here. Let me take that back off. Notice the date right here because if it's 2025, that means they updated it. All right. So make sure you're always aware of the dates right here. So let me highlight that. And the reason why I like the PDFs, because like I said, I'm a digital, plus I love hard copies and all that, but I also like to have notes. So when I'm doing training or sessions, um, the person or the individual that I'm training or mentoring with or having a session with they can use that and go, because if it's in my mind, they can't use it. If it's on my paper, they can't use it. But if it's right here in front, they can record the session and go back and replay it again. So I've always been a proponent of wanting to record sessions and so forth and so on, and learn how to use the digital tools so I can effectively help others. You see, because we're notorious for being able, we got all this knowledge in our head, but we want our team to be able to do the same thing we're doing. They can't. Not everybody. is you. And then you might be on this level and they down here. Everybody have a place. Everybody has a place. And you just need to know how to utilize them and where to put them in their place. Okay. All right. So now the contract terms. So that's how you know. So you've printed it, you've made your notes. All right. And it's telling you, it's talking about block CSF 1449, block 20. So when most of our small business say, well, I don't know how to read the contract clauses because you're looking too you're looking sometimes we look too deep in it and when it's simply just saying this. Okay. So that's why I say take your time, dissect it. You see how I'm walking you through each stage and each phase of the contract and showing you how the pieces go together and what sections go what, because then you'll be able to walk your team through and then you'll be able to take that knowledge that you've learned, and then when you go to those workshops you'll have a good product, and then now you're working on advancing and then automating and so forth and so on. But you can't automate, you can't do all those things until you know, okay, this goes first, then this goes second. You understand? Okay, so let's keep going. All right, so in the contract terms and conditions required, they're telling you the contractor shall. Remember, that's why I always tell you Control F. Okay, we already got it up there. Now we're going to do the shalls. So when I'm reading the contract clauses, I'm looking for all the shalls and the must. So you got to do one at a time, though. It's not going to let you do both. So you did the shall. So now you're seeing the contractor shall comply with the following federal acquisition regulations clauses, which are incorporated in this contract by reference. So if you want to look at them, what all of it, then you just got to go to the federal acquisitions for expanded. And then, like I said, now that they have the chat GPT and all this going, you need help, you go take that clause, throw it in Chat GPT. Please explain this to me in plain English or in whatever, how I could understand it. Now give me examples of what they mean, so forth and so on. You see what I'm saying? Because that's sometimes you can't get a hold to someone and you just need to go and then tell it because it does hallucinations. I've taken up a couple of AI classes now, so I can start incorporating AI moving in the future because I'm still trying to practice and learn how to use it because in our last couple of trainings everyone has been asking about the AI because that's what we're living in now, AI. So I'm trying to refine before I go try to teach something. I have to apply it first. I have to implement it first. And then that way I can effectively teach something. You know what I'm saying? That's why I'm able to teach what I am now because I've been there, done it, and then now I can teach it. Okay. So what you're doing is you're going in here learning what all these mean. So you done print it out, you made your notes, you done read all of the FAR clauses. All right. And then you'll know next, see, there go the next, the shall, the contractor shall comply with FAR clauses in paragraph B that the contracting officer has indicated as being incorporated in this contract by reference to implement provisions of law or executive orders applicable to acquisition of commercial products and commercial services. And then you have all those there. Restrictions on subcontractors. So subcontractors, you need to know what's going on too, because certain things they're telling you. Then they're talking about all the code of business ethics and all that. So just know it. Go in here, learn it. You got your printout. So when the next one come out, all right. You're looking at it. You've already read those clauses. That's going to save you time. But you still keep looking and looking at those dates and making sure they didn't update it or change it. So that way you stay refreshed and you don't have to learn everything all over again. Because when you don't use it, you forget everything you learn. So what you're doing is constant learning. All right, now let's talk about this one. You see this new one, reporting executive compensation and first tier subcontract awards. Learn that, especially if you're a subcontractor. Okay. That's important to learn. There's all those tools, resources out there. Learn what everything means because you cannot play the game if you do not know how to play the rules of the game because they know how to play. Established businesses know how. That's why they winning. Okay. That's why they're winning because they know all the rules to the game. Okay, so let's keep going. So we're looking for the next shall. All right, you see, notice of price evaluation. That's only if it's a hub zone small business. This was not a sub, and then you just go check. So if you know, forgot original, there is no set aside for this. This is full and open competition. That means you bidding against everybody. That means you bidding against the smalls, the mediums, the large, the megas, you name it. If they want to come after this opportunity, they will, because it's open to all. Whoever has this NAICS code and whoever has this PSC code. Okay, so let's go back to the opportunity. Let me back to, where was I at? Oh, I know where I was at. I was on solicitation. I apologize. All right, so then total small business set aside. Then so you're learning about the notice those partial small business set asides, a notice of total small business set aside. You're just getting aware. Um, Small business subcontracting plan, when that's incorporated, if you see that NAICS code, I mean that clause, uh, and so forth and so on. So let me keep moving, because we're looking for all of our shalls. And then, like I said, you're going to take your time and go through this because you need to know what they are, especially if they got an X next to it. Okay. You need to know about it. Okay. Now, the contractor shall comply with the FAR clauses in paragraph C applicable to commercial services the contracting office has indicated as being incorporated in this contract by reference to implement provisions and law. Same thing, and especially when they have the X next to them. And then you just keep on. So now let me go to the next section where it's telling you some more information. So same thing. That's why I said do the shall. Now, once you've done the shall, if you want to go in there and look for must and all those keywords they normally use, you just go ahead and you just do that. That's why I tell you I have reviewed this opportunity several times because I'm always trying to make sure I'm teaching you to do the same thing. Okay. All right. So now we want to go to that next section. Okay. Then they'll tell you add the following clause in full text. So now you're going to start seeing the ones because mostly they're going to take all these clauses and they're going to put it in your contract award. It's going to be in there because it's going to be part of your contract. So you need to know what's in your contract, right? This will be incorporated in your contract. So that's the end of those ones. Now we on the full text. And this is where it's going to get the when they're putting full text in here, they're expecting you to read all of this. I'm telling you, they're expecting you to read it because they're asking you to do stuff in some of these. Okay. So let's show for that. They just notifying you that the contractor, if the contractor is a foreign person, so they just notify you. But I want to get to the next part, the ones that I highlighted. So here's the addendums to the contract clauses, and this is commercial. So when you see Fire Part 12, that's commercial. And they just give me some more incorporations. Now, this one also option to extend, but that's they just put that in there just in case they do want to extend it. But they don't not necessarily because this one is telling you they only need 12 months. Then they're letting you know this availability of the funds for the next fiscal year. And then they're telling now these are the other clauses that could be incorporated. And this one, remember, Department of State. This is theirs. They're incorporating some different clauses. These clauses will not be in another solicitation if it's not Department of State. This is their clauses they're incorporating. And the clauses that they're incorporating, they're telling you contractor identification. Contractor must, right here, contractor performance may require, I apologize, may require contractor personnel to attend meetings with government personnel and the public, work within government offices and or utilize government email. And then they're telling you what all has to take place using email, signature block. They're telling you what all that. Now, they're also telling you examination of records with respect. They're telling you what they're going to do. All right. The contractor shall insert, they're telling you security requirements. The contractor shall comply. They're telling you what form you need to take care. So that's what you see why it's important that you understand each section and what they're asking of you for that contract. And it's going to be different for each. And then this is the rest of the Department of States right here. They're talking about the payment schedule, the invoice submission. They're telling you how to do the invoicing. All right. It needs to be a PDF file for the embassy and in the vendor portal. They're telling you you need to use a vendor portal. They're even telling you the type resolution. It need to be a 300 DP and so forth and so on. So that's why I said it's important. And then they're telling you how to name the file. It needs to say PR number, vendor name, invoice number, because remember, you're not the only person dealing with them. They're dealing with so many small businesses. And if they say your invoice doesn't get paid and they need to go search the system, they need to be able to search according to your PR number, your vendor name, or the invoice number. You see what I'm saying? They can search for that when you put it in there like they're telling you. But too many times I've seen people submit stuff as if we were best friends and I know who you are out of all these businesses. No, you have to submit it the way they're telling you to submit it. And then they tell you what needs to be included in the invoice number, the date, the requisition of the contract number, the description, the quantity, the unit. You have to put all that in there. And then they say you are receiving messages of receipt, same in the following 7 days. You don't get your message of a receipt saying they received it, submit it again, because then that means somebody didn't receive it or it was overlooked. And then when you don't get paid, then you're upset about why haven't I got paid? Because we didn't follow through. Because it's a bunch of us coming to them. And so many days I could overlook an invoice and I had to apologize and resubmit, because sometimes you be so busy and have so many customers, you thinking you submitted, but you didn't. And when that customer lets you know, oh, I apologize, let me hurry up and get that submitted for you. And then that way they can elevate it and escalate it to the top so you can get your invoice, because we all need to get paid. Now they're telling you if the address is different, put it right here. Okay, just observing of the holidays and so forth and so on, and just more of the same. And then this is the end of the clause. And then they're telling you going to be dealing with a contracting officer representative. Okay, so then once the award is issued, that's normally when you find out who your POC is, who the COR is, the contracting officer representative, if there is one on this particular project, because it's so small. But normally they still, even when it's small, they're gonna still give you a PLC. And then the authorization and performance, the notices, and now we're on, so it's section 3 again. All right, so because I wanted you to understand how the importance of how we put all of these tools together to build this draft. So now we're on section 3. So now let's bring it all in. Okay, now we're on section 3. So now section 3, the solicitation and provisions. All right. All right, so what section 3 is, the overview. All right, this section outlines the rules, um, and it also outlines the instructions, okay, on how they want the document to be put together. And you'll see when we were putting together, it was the instructions for submitting your proposal, the method, the deadline, and the contact information. It's the proposal format, the file naming conventions. You're going to see that in there as well. And then required reps or attachments, because we had an amendment. So that is required because you got to acknowledge that amendment. Okay, what to expect? The submission instructions. Is it electronic format? Is there a page limit or a page count, which we did not see? The deadlines, who to contact, clarifications. Remember, that's the question and answer. You had to get to them before a certain time so you can get those questions and answers. And then disqualifying factors if late submission or missing forms. Now, how it impacts your proposal. Any mistakes here is missing the submission platform or the format could disqualify you. This ensures your proposal is responsive and accepted for evaluation, because we've done all this work. Now we want it to be um, evaluated so we can qualify to win the gold medal, which is the contract award. Okay. And then it helps you to comply with the evaluations readiness, which is in the next section, section 4. All right. Because section 4 is our evaluation factors. And then they're going to tell us how we're going to be graded, just like a rubric. When you got an assignment, we tell you, okay, if you do all these things, you get A. If you do all these things, you get a B. and C and so forth. It's the rubric, it's the grading mechanism to make sure you've met the requirement. That's the evaluation factor. Okay, so now let's move into that section. Now we're in section 3, provisions. Now let me go to the solicitation first. So this is how you do it. Remember, you going in here, you're finding out everything. We've already talked about this portion of it, the summary of instructions, and we built us a little draft document so we know how to build out the instruction. This is me copy and pasting in something. But the handouts that I've given you is handout 1, this one right here, you already know, and then the handout 2. The draft response, this is you putting it into practice, copying and pasting out the solicitation and going through each section. All right, so we went through section 1 already. Then this is the solicitation provisions incorporated by reference. You've already looked at that. Okay, so let's go finish going through here, because by the time we finish this training, we have went through the entire proposal. So we're not going to the evaluation factors yet, right? Because we're just going through how to answer these questions right here. Let's go back up here. So now you see how we put this all together. Now, the solicitation and provisions. All right, now we did this section right here. We on A2 now. So now we put the name of the program management person right here. So let's go in the solicitation right here. And then you can put your blurb, the business establishment right here. This is where you're going to insert your state certification, so forth, so on. Then they ask for your SAMS registration. This is where you're going to insert your SAMS registration. You see how I've put everything in order. So all you have to do insert everything in the correct space. Now they want to know. So let's go each step by step. So that's the first one. And then the pricing, we'll talk about that in our CUS proposal development training, which is in October, because you see how we would have ran out of time, and then I would have been rushing and not able to really take my time and break down the cost proposal, because it's deep, it's a deep dive as well, and we got a lot of things to cover. Okay, so now we put the information right there. We did the establishment of the business. We inserted the SAM registration. Now let's talk about the past performance. Now remember, they said they wanted to see past performance, past clients in media, multimedia content, and they said a list from past 3 years. You see? And then so tailored right here. So I always say client 1, client 2, client 3. Okay. And that's what now say you had one client for all 3 years. That's you could do that. It's the different ways. But they also said they wanted communication campaigns. Now you could have did both at both places, or you could have did this at one place or this one at that. So that's why I broke it out. So but you have to speak to this. Do not miss that. So when you see the evidence right here, established business, shall, right? And then the list, now right here, list of clients over the past 3 years demonstrating prior experience with the ability to produce compelling, culturally related media content targeting, right? So that's why that's the first one. Now, but you see that fifth one? That's list past 3 years demonstrating the communication campaign. So that's why I broke it up, because they broke it up. They said number 4 and number 5. That's why I read stuff carefully, and I read it over and over again, highlight, copy, paste, and then I fill in. Now, this is where I think they messed up from another opportunity. The offers strategic plan for preventive maintenance services for mechanical equipment to include but not limited to. So that's one of the questions you would have asked at the Q&A, because this is why certain small business be confused. They be like, "Well, I'm not going after this. What is this?" No, 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 no. You still go after it. Just ask the clarifying question at the meeting, and they probably would have told you, no, this doesn't apply to that. We accidentally left that in there. Or they did give that information out, but because you didn't attend the event, you don't know what they said. You see what I'm saying? So I believe that was a administrative error. So I didn't speak to it because that is no relevant to this campaign. It has no relevance. I believe it was an error. And then you will find that out in the meeting. Now we move all the way to, because the reporting requirements they had was already in section one. All right. Now then the acknowledgement, this one you will acknowledgement of solicitation amendments. And we had one solicitation amendments. And how you acknowledge that, you have to print right here and time and date. You have to, and this needs to be inserted. That's the standard form 30 has to be inserted, okay, into that proposal response. So let me go back to it. So you see how I did it. So because they said they won't pass, but now I've showed you to break it out. Do not mix it. Break it out because they broke it out. If they break it out, you break it out. They said number 4 is the list of clients over the past 3 years for the media content. And then 5, list the, see that? But if they're together, then you need to make sure it's a multimedia and communications campaign on your past performance. So that's what my project description would say. And then I will make sure I put it in parentheses which ones I'm talking about. Multimedia content and communication. Boom. I'm gonna put it on all 3 of them. If you did it for all 3. You see what I'm saying? But you gotta have 3 years for both. If I'm not mistaken, it said 3 years for both. So let's go back and make sure. Yep, 3 years for both. So don't say, oh, I only got the 3 years in multimedia content. They didn't ask you that. They asked you for both. All right. Because another company who's submitting the same proposal, they could have both. And then who you think they're going to pick? The one that has both. Okay. So there's a method to the madness. Okay. And then the contract number, if it's a commercial, you put commercial number. If it ain't a contract, or you put contract invoice, whatever you want to put. This is not etched in stone. This is just a template to get you started. You change it. If it's not an agency and it's a small business or a B2B, as they call it, or the B2C, or just a client you work for, put that in here. It's okay. And then the amount, because they want to know the amount, because they're measuring um, your contract capacity, the financial. Have you worked a 250,000 K project or 150,000 K project, and boom, 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 right? They're looking at your past performance for everything. They're evaluating your financial responsibility and so forth. And then they want to know the start date and the end date, or if it's still ongoing, then put it ongoing. And then where you're a prime, sub, employee, I put everything. 1099er, whatever. You put the role. Okay. And then the description. Give them a really good description. And I always recommend, this is media. So I know you have some samples, some examples of, just sample work of something, just a snapshot of something that you can give them, like a link to go look at your portfolio. All right. Many times we miss the opportunity to advertise our business because we're not taking our time putting the information correctly, having a portfolio that they can go look at and see some of the work we've done, some of the agencies, some of the customers we have done. If you have it on your website, put the link. But I'm telling you, they're not going to look. If you don't make it easy for them, and make it really nice, or you can put a 1-page sample and then say, to see more, then you go to my portfolio. But at least put one sample, put something in there so they can see your style, the way you communicate, how you do your pictures, your graphics, so forth and so on. Because our thing is, we're trying to win. So we're going to put a little bit more into it. Not just meet the standard, but exceed the standard. You understand? All right. So now we talked about the past performance. Okay. Gave you a sample. Now, they asked for a resume. So let's keep going. All right. They said submit resumes of proposed personnel highlighting their qualifications, creative capabilities, and their technical expertise relevant to the scope of work. So notice I put a template in here for you to address everything. Make sure you address everything. This is resumes for the program manager, the name, the qualifications summary, and you fill it out. The work experience, the positions, the level of education, even skills and achievements. If you take up any kind of trainings or Canva, all this. I'm putting tools, I'm putting everything I use to let them know that I am an expert in this field. We use Canva for this, we use Adobe Pro for this. This is how we're able to put together such great media content. We use OpenShot or we use the Adobe, whatever it is. And then your certifications. I'm certified in advertisement and something, whatever those certifications are. They want to know they got the expert, because when you're looking for someone to come out to do something for you, you're looking for that expert. Okay. And then now this is acknowledging the solicitation and amendments. And the rest of this is for you to fill out your agency name. Because how about they drop your requirement, right? Say they printed it out, dropped it. Oh, they won't lose any of my information. I'm putting agency name on their number, title name, and then at the bottom, I personalize every page. I'm going to put my email address, whatever, my name, all this. So if they fall and drop, they already know that goes to mine. If you put the papers back together, that's mine. I'm branding everything. I use Canva to create all my graphics, my designs, and so forth and so on, because you want to make it beautiful, because you're advertising. So why wouldn't you make it beautiful? Go on Canva, design it, put your brand colors, put their colors, all that stuff, and just make it yours and personalize it. You'll get used to that. And then once you build it once, you rinse and repeat, rinse and repeat. That's how it goes. Okay, so that's the end of the demo for uh, the proposal response, just teaching you how to get started. So that's the end of that. All right, we've already talked about the compliance matrix and the proposal checklist. Now let's go back to the slides and continue on, because we're about to come to a close. All right, so now section 4, the evaluation criteria. Okay, so what that is, all right. This section outlines how proposals will be evaluated, including criteria and any scoring methods. All right. Normally, they have a complex scoring methods, but for the sake of this video and to keep you on the basic fundamentals, I selected something that didn't have something so um, blasting you, giving you the chance to you learn the precepts and the concepts before we go a little bit deeper. All right. And what you're reviewing there, what is going to be reviewed is the technical past performance. Then, of course, the cost evaluation factors, because they already told you that this evaluation method is lowest price technically acceptable. They didn't say they want the best value. They said, no, we just want the lowest price technically acceptable. So whoever does it for the most economical, most affordable, this is who we're going after. And what to expect, you have to extract using your own scoring methodism, because it basically is a no-go, no or a go or no-go thresholds. It really didn't give us much to go off of. All right. It's just telling us basically this one is a price is the deciding factor. But because they made sure compliance, that's the first thing they're going to do. And now they're going for price. So that's why you always hear if it's not compliant, because everybody, so say we evaluated 5 and all 5 are compliant, the tiebreaker is the price. You see what I'm saying? So when it says compliant, that means everybody met the same thing. Everybody did the same thing, gave us a good product, but now we're going to, the tiebreaker is the price, basically. And then if they send a notice to someone and they don't respond or something, then they're going to go to the second person's price. You see what I'm saying? Because anything could happen. Okay, so that's how it impacts us, the structure, the narration. They're looking at everything closely. And that's why the compliance matrix helps you to evaluate, because you're evaluating basically yourself to make sure you got everything, either you exceeded the standards or you just met it. Okay. And so let's look at the evaluation factor of the proposal. All right, so let's go to the proposal. Now we're going to the evaluation factor. Let me make sure I didn't pass. Wait a minute, we did that. Okay, so now let's look at the evaluation factor, section 4. All right, so now the government intends to award a contract resulting from this solicitation to the lowest price technically acceptable. That's where I got the lowest price technically acceptable. All right, because I read the evaluation criteria. That's what they call it when you're looking at a federal, the ones, the normal ones. It normally say criteria, but they want to just call it factors, which is, the way the State Department does it. Now they're telling you compliance review. The government intends to award a contract resulting from this solicitation to the lowest price, technically acceptable, offers who are responsible, contractor. And I've already told you what that is. You met everything. You're compliant. You've done your SAMS registration. All right. They already told you if you expired and all that, you excluded from the process, and the proposals will not be evaluated. They've already told you it will not. There's no if and buts about it. It will not because you're not compliant. Why should they evaluate yours and you're not keeping up with your registration when all of these other people are keeping up with the registration? They will get the reward. You won't get the reward because you wasn't properly um, making sure you met all the requirements. All right. The proposals deemed to be acceptable under the compliance review, a technically acceptability, and the price evaluation will be conducted. So basically, tells me that all of them are equally. They're reviewing it equally because sometimes you've seen, okay, the price is 20%, but the technical acceptability is 75%. They change it because whatever means the most to them, that's what they want. Okay, that's what they're saying. Okay, that one, I want this first. I want the technical piece first, and the price, I can work with you on that, and I have the budget to work with you on that because sometimes they have no choice. The budget only allows for the lowest price technically acceptable. That's the only thing they would approve. Okay, so then you see B is the technical acceptance. This is what they're telling you to be technically acceptable. They're going to review the past performance and experience in accordance with, right, in defined section 3. So that's in accordance with, along with any technical information provided by the officer and his quotes. So you see why I told you put that sample in there, put that portfolio link, all that, something to differentiate you, something to make them remember you, something, but not too much. Because if you overdo it, they'll be like, oh, that's just too much. So it's a balance, right? So because um, we need to come in 1 second more so we can win first place. Basically, that's all we're looking for, a way to win first place to get that contract award. Then they're going to do the price evaluation. All right, I already told you about that. And then the response, they say responsibility determination. Remember, I kept telling you about that adequate financial resources and ability to obtain them. Okay, this is what they're looking at when they say that. That's why I say you at the state of Maryland, and then they look up your state of Maryland, and it says that you are not in good standing. Oh, that's an automatic no. All right, so you got to make sure your Maryland is in good standing. These are some of the things they're looking at, and then the financial responsibility. They're looking at your past performance. How much was this contract that you did? They basically looking at a lot of things. Okay, and then they're just telling you that the evaluation options, the government will evaluate offers for awards, proposing by adding the total price of options. There's no options on this one. And then so forth and so on. All right. And then reps and certs, that last section. So let me go back to the slide as we get ready to close it down. All right, section 5, reps and certs. All that is the required legal regulatory certifications from the offer. That's what that is. In reference and according to the DOSAR, that's Department of State. All right. All they're doing is reviewing your self-certification, size, status, ownership, compliance, making sure you're not debarred. That means that you're not able to do business with the government. The integrity, your UEI. They're ensuring that your company is current. That's all they're doing. It's doing all that rest of the stuff. And a proposal missing any signed reps and certs is non-compliant. Same thing. We talked about that. You're non-compliant. So the reps and certs, make sure you're aware of those. Like I said, shells. You're going in there reading all the shells. You're looking at everything. You're going in there because some of them they're going to ask you questions in there. They'll slate stuff in there and ask you questions. So that's why I said print it out. Take your time with the first one. Make your notes so you know what to expect in the next opportunity. Because I want to get to the end of this slide so you can see like the woman owned. All right. If you're a woman owned, complete only if the offer represented itself as a small business concern as woman owned. And then you see it is or is not. You see, that's why I said take your time and go through this. Shall, you see if it's a joint venture, you're just going through. And then, like I said, you're going to rinse and repeat. And then you're going to get used to going through the proposal. You'll be like, oh, I know this in this section because you've been through it before. You've done it a couple of times and it's going to get muscle memory. So, because I wanted you to go through the end of this training, going through the entire proposal, building a proposal draft so you can feel confident when you leave this training to implement all of the teachings that you learned today. They're talking about the tax ID number. So that's why I'm telling you, you have to take time, the name, all that. Read what applies to you. They're telling you the offer shall email questions concerning sensitive technology they gave you an email address. So take your time. If they give you anything in here, then you go look at all the resources, references, everything. You're going in here to read everything. That way you are well versed on this opportunity. You know they're telling you offer represents blank and it is or is not. Boom, you're going in here checking everything, making sure you grasp everything. Okay. And so this is the entire proposal. We went through the entire proposal in this training. This is page 59. We're done. We're talked about the amendment. All right. So now, and we checked to make sure there was not any new amendments. So we're good on that. And then let's go back to the slides to close it out. All right, so now prepare for our counseling session. So at the end of each slide, I try to prepare you for your counseling sessions. I'm trying to prepare you for the next training session. And if you do these things that we're talking about, then you will have success. All right, but if you don't, I don't know what else to tell you. So make sure. So organize your proposal folder and double check that your Google Drive proposal structure is clean and labeled. We talked about that in proposal level 1. Now we cost volume folder created. Get it ready because we're about to go into our next training session will be on cost development, cost proposal development training, and that will be next month. Make sure that's restricted access. You don't want everyone in your pricing. All right. Review the pricing section on this proposal because this proposal solicitation that we've been going through, we're going to pick back up on it. Okay. That way you can understand what it's asking, the deliverables, reporting, media buys, all that. Do you have to go purchase something? You'll know all that and bring those questions to the next session. Think about challenges you faced when you were going through this. Do you know what indirect rates are? Do you know the pricing strategy or allowable costs? Those are some of the things we're going to talk about in that training. So this is to prepare you for the next training, for your sessions, and so forth and so on. And the more training, so the next training is October 16th. That's going to be the cost development proposal, cost proposal development. Then the November 13th, that's the contract administration, and December the 11th, the how to navigate contracting in the defense industry base. Okay. And questions?
Thank you, Akiesha. Excellent as always. So yes, now's your opportunity. We have a few minutes left. If you would like Akiesha to answer any questions or to go over any of the slides. So I'm going to scroll through the chat box and see if there's anything that we have. So we've had questions about previous trainings to do with past performance and subcontracting. I've posted those links in the chat. Okay, so the cost proposal development training is going to be on October 9th.
We did have to move that. I
We did have to
apologize,
move it.
team.
That's
We
okay.
had to move that to October 9th. So I apologize, team. It is October 9th. Yes.
Okay, so I've posted the link in the chat box so you can see that. And I will be sending you all these handouts and the recording, so don't worry about that. Let's see, anything else? I definitely need to apply what I've learned. I'm looking forward to receiving the slides. Good, good. Found this very useful. Look forward to the templates as well. Okay, here's a question. If there are any page restrictions, how do you navigate it with respect to how you lay out the response?
Oh, that's a really good one. Okay, so I'll just use this as an example. So say we had um page restrictions. So what you think you're gonna do? You're gonna go to your compliance matrix. You're gonna insert something to the left. And then we're going to put the restrictions, the page, right? Page restrictions. And so say they only gave you 10 pages, then you know I only got one page because sometimes they're going to tell you how many pages per, right? So then you go through and say, okay, I can only have one page for the cover, one page for the SF 1449. Then they give me one page for the proposal, so you know how many pages, and so maybe you only get a page and a half for your executive summary, or so forth and so on. And that's how you do your page count. But if there is no page count, the rule of thumb is to just keep it concise, simple, and that way you know how many pages. You say, hey, I'm only gonna put one page for this, one page for that, one page for this. So when you're dealing with these page counts, if they have it, then you lay it out, and everybody knows on the team, okay, that we only got 10 pages. This gonna be on this gonna be on that, this one gonna be on this. And then you could only do a half a page, and then I'm gonna put two things on that page, and then you just got to bring it down to go into that page count. Because if you are found not in compliant, they're not going to evaluate it and you've wasted your time. The goal is for them to review it so you can win. I hope that helped.
Yes, it did. Thank you. Okay, another question has come in. Can I apply for an opportunity that falls outside of my NAICS code?
Oh, yes, but you have to make sure it's on your SAM registration, because this is what they're going to do. They're going to go check your SAM registration to see what all NAICS codes you have on there. So if you're saying you're an advertising agency, do you have the receipts? You know what I'm saying? Basically, they want to see, okay, all your past performance for that NAICS code. So, like me, I do training. So, mine will be 61430. And then all my receipts will be all the different trainings that I've done. Okay. That is how they're going to evaluate. Because if you pick a NAICS code that you have no experience in, how, I mean, what's the validate? I mean, you're not going to win any contracts because they're going to go with the people that have the experience with that NAICS code and that PSC code, that product service code. So it's important that you select things that you actually do. And if you plan to do it, then you need to start gaining past performance. And either you're going to do that as a subcontractor because you're not going to win a prime contract that way. So you got to make sure when you're selecting those NAICS and those PSC codes, the product service codes of what service you do, it needs to align with what you do. Just like management consulting, mine will be 541611. Training 611430. That's the NAICS, but my PSC code, because I'm an acquisition SME, is Romeo 707, and so forth and so on. So that's how you know, and that's how you decide. So if you did pick up something in the commercial sector that you're really good at, go find that PSC code, go find that NAICS code, and then add it to your SAM registration. And that way, when you go after those opportunities, when they look at your SAM registration, boom, they already coming. I mean, you are in the evaluation way. Now they're going to look at your stuff. I hope that helped.
Yes, your answers always help, Akiesha. You are such a font of knowledge. Thank you so much. Okay, so we're running out of time, and I know if you've any of your questions not being answered, you can forward them to me. You can forward them to Akiesha. I will be sending. I know Akiesha's has updated the PowerPoint. She's going to send that over to me, and then I will send this out to you along with the recording later on today. So, any final words, Akiesha, before we wrap up?
I'll just keep learning, and I'm telling you, you're gonna do good in this. You gotta get the educational training foundations to keep going, and then don't forget the additional resources. There's plenty of them out there for you. All right, you all, take
All
care
right.
now.
Thanks, Akiesha. Thanks, everybody, for joining us today. We'll hope to see you at Akiesha's next class in October. Take care.
All
Bye-bye.
right, everyone, bye.